Hello, it's Tom Donald from the London Contemporary School of Piano. Today we're going to learn how to improvise over different jazz chord progressions. And by the way, if you're a fan of our work at the London Contemporary School of Piano, you should visit our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, where you can get our free resources kit that has lots of supporting materials that support these YouTube videos and your musical journey. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Just visit our website. So today's topic, we're going to cover a bunch of tunes, just a couple, and we're going to look at different approaches for improvisation over these chords. So we're not learning necessarily how to play solo, full-blown solo piano over jazz standards today. We're more or less looking at some strategies as to what actually do we improvise over the chord progressions. And there's lots of advanced theory and lots of advanced strategies and techniques out there. They all have their place and they're all very important. But I find that there is a lot of basic information missing out there for students. And I think it's really important to get the basics right when we start improvising over chord progressions. Start with those basics first and build on that and get that sounding good first, because we can get so caught up in advanced theory and it just slows us down and we're not necessarily even ready for it. So I'm really going to focus on the key simple things that really matter here. So we're going to take it pretty much of an intermediate level at this. I'm not going to go into the really heavy stuff, because the heavy stuff is really the icing on the cake. And so many people focus on the icing but not the cake, if you know what I mean. So we're going to start with a song called All the Things You Are. It's a beautiful song. And we're going to look at the chords and what we would improvise over the top of those chords. So for instance, let's look at the chords of the first 8 bars. We've got this: F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7, D flat major 7, G7, C major 7. So these chords that we just played belong very much to an F minor realm. So let's analyze these first 8 bars as F minor. So I'll play the chords in the left hand just to demonstrate, and we will play some F minor options in the right hand. Now, minor scales are not binary. They're not like a major scale, like major, C major, F major, G major, and that's that. There are lots of options when we play minor scales. So as a starting point, I'm going to say the F natural minor scale. Got a very gentle sound. We're not going to use the F harmonic minor scale because it's just a little bit too dissonant for the type of application of how we're using it. And in jazz and blues, generally we don't play very much harmonic minor. It's generally used more in classical forms of music, though you can use it. It's definitely worth playing it and seeing if it fits, because a lot of this is just what is your own tastes are. I sometimes like to slot in some harmonic minor to give some flavour to the music, but we're going to use natural minor sort of as our default option here. And so this scale is going to fit these first bunch of chords really quite nicely. I'm just going to play very basic, simple material to start with, just to really hear how the two react with each other. Let me do those first 8 bars again. So that were the first 8 bars. Now, the chord progression changes a little bit for the next 8 bars. Let's go over the chord progression. We now have C minor, F minor, flat 7, E flat major 7, A flat major 7, D7, G major 7. So let's just recap all of those chords. We've had a lot of chords so far in this piece. F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. So that second section, we pivot to the key of C minor until we have another little interruption here where we have the D7 to the G major 7. So what I'm going to do, just to try it out for size, it won't be perfect, I'm going to play in the key of F minor for the first 8 bars, and then I'm going to play in the key of C minor for the next 8 bars. And let's just try that out for size. Now C minor, I'm just using that C natural minor scale. So, by the way, to get an analysis of this chord progression with the annotated scales, do head on over to our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, to get our free resources kit that support these videos. Now, there were a couple of shortcomings, you could say, with that approach. It's because the chords changed in certain ways, though we had a whole chunk of music that was in F minor, and then we had another chunk of music in C minor. It was just towards the end of the phrase, you might have noticed there was a bit of dissonance, and sometimes it bothered me and sometimes it didn't bother me. Quite funny that. Music's quite subjective, and maybe it depends what mood I'm in as well. But I'll just show you where this happened. It happened here, when I got to this point here. It's because the G7 and the C major 7 fall outside that F cozy, F natural minor scale. And the same thing happened in the end of the C minor section as well. So it created a bit of tension. So how do I then tamper my scales to make them fit with these chord changes? And this is a secondary approach we can apply to improvising over chord progressions. And it's what we call descriptive improvisation. So I want you to think of improvisation over jazz chord progressions as you ultimately having 2 options. What are those 2 options? The first option is to think about the scale and to improvise around a universal scale like that F minor scale or that C minor scale. And that universal scale fits a whole passage of music nicely, hopefully like a glove, and sounds really beautiful. But what happens then when that doesn't work? We can then apply another strategy known as descriptive improvisation. And descriptive improvisation is where we more or less think about the chord we're playing rather than a universal scale. So let's apply this descriptive improvisation technique to perhaps the first 8 chords of the song or 8 bars of the song. So I've got an F minor 7. I'll just go over those chords again. And now I will arpeggiate the chords in the right hand in different ways. And I can even add passing notes between that arpeggio. So I've got my F minor 7, but I could perhaps add extra passing tones. And because we only have 1 or 2 chords in a bar or per bar, I don't have much time to improvise on that given chord. So descriptive improvisation can take a little bit more concentration in that sense, but we're thinking chord by chord, so things are moving quite quickly. Let me show you what it would sound like. That that would be an example of descriptive improvisation. Now, if I do too much of that, perhaps it just sounds a bit chordy. So it's good to use a bit of both. So what I'm going to do at that end part of that F minor section, I'm going to use some descriptive improvisation when that G7 and C major 7 comes, just so it's not quite as dissonant, because it was starting to slightly clash there with the F minor scale. And let me try that. And I'll do the same thing on that next section where it goes into C minor. Let's see how it goes. Now to C minor. So I was moving between both approaches, playing a bit of the scale, playing a bit of the chord. And that's a really useful thing to play around with and experiment with. So let's now look at the next section of the song. So we've had the first 8 bars in F minor, the next 8 bars in C minor, and then there's a lot of chords in this song. So what have we got here? A minor 7, D7, G major 7, F sharp minor 7, B7, E major 7. What does that all mean? Well, if we use a bit of detective work, we've got a lot of 2-5-1s going on here. We've got a 2-5-1 in G major. Then we have a 2-5-1 in E major. So the next 2 lines is what we've got, a 2-5-1 in G major, so we'll play G major scale. And then we'll play E major scale. Okay, let's play around with that. G major. E major now. So I used a very much of a scale-driven approach there, and that worked really well. I could use more descriptive improvisation, though, and break out the chords. Let's play it that way, see what it sounds like. Then it goes back to F minor. We'll talk a bit about that passage because there's some fun options there as well. Let's do a recap then. Okay, so I'm going to play it in ballad style now. I just sort of moved to swing style there, but I'm going to go back to ballad style because it just allows me to slow down and we can be a little bit extra analytical. We're being quite analytical today. So F minor. G7 to the C major 7 with some descriptive playing. Now C minor. The D7 to G major 7. Now we're in the key of G major with our 2-5-1. Anything G major scale fits beautifully. Now the key of E major. Now we have a C7 with a sharpened 5th. Which then brings us back, that's like a dominant chord with a bit of extra spice to it, that brings us back to the F minor. And the tune finishes in the key of F minor with these chords. We have some extra chords here, so I'm going to use some descriptive playing. With that diminished passing chord. Then we have a 2-5-1 in A flat major, which is perfect for an A flat major scale. And by the way, spoiler alert, A flat major scale has exactly the same notes in it as its relative minor, F natural minor. It's got the same notes. It's like an A flat major scale studied on an F, so they cross-relate really nicely. Now, there's a pretty exciting chord in that. We've got the 2-5-1s in G major and then in E major, and then we have this dominant 7 chord with the sharpened 5th augmented. And that leads us back to the home key F minor. Whenever you come across these augmented type chords, in jazz particularly, that's an invitation to go a bit wild. And in that bar, I can sort of do what I like. But one thing that will sound really good is use a whole tone scale. Which sounds great. So I could just do that, and that would be really nice. Or I could actually play almost whatever I want to, and just stay with me when I say whatever I want. All right, I'm playing random notes there. It seems random. And I only have a bar to do it, so I don't have long. It would be too much if I went over that bar. But the reason why I can get away with playing almost anything I want there and adding lots of dissonance is because it's the dominant 7 of the piece with that augmented interval, and it's moving us back to the home key. And the thing with dominant 7 chords, there's an interesting property that dominant 7 chords have in this context, is that you can get away with adding a lot of dissonance to them, putting a lot of pressure on them. They won't collapse. The structure of that dominant 7th chord somehow stays maintained, and we still feel like we want to return back to the F minor. So that extra tension in that bar will actually work really well. I think that's really cool. So I'm going to try this whole thing out for size. So let's just summarize what I'm going to do. First 8 bars I'm in F minor, and head on over to our website to get the crib sheet for this, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com. Next 8 bars I'm in C minor. I have to use a little bit of descriptive improvisation with those last 2 chords of the phrase. Then the next 4 bars I'm in G major because I've got the 2-5-1. Then I've got the 2-5-1 in E major. Then I have the C7 augmented 5th. That's when I can do whatever I like. I can play whatever I like there. Be really naughty. That'll be a lot of fun. And then I go back to F minor, but then we have some chromatic chords at the end, so I'll use some descriptive playing. Basically, if you don't know what to play, just arpeggiate the chords and be descriptive. That's basically what we're doing here. And just get your hands dirty. Just play. It's all about playing. It's not about being perfect. So I've just given you that analysis. Let's try it out for size. Okay, I'll go back to the swing style again. Now, what's really difficult about this type of improvisation, and I find it difficult to this day, is I'm not relying on any licks or tricks. I'm giving myself the broader information in the sense of the scale and the chords, and I'm forcing myself to invent whatever I can invent out of that. So you're inventing phrases, you're inventing material based on this broader concept of the scale and the chords. And it's just a very holistic and useful way to dig deeper into your own playing and look for resources. So just go for it. Let's look at another song as an example, because that's a hard example. I've started with something challenging. I want to now use an example that's a bit more streamlined. So a good example of that might be, I would say, Satin Doll by the great Duke Ellington. So if I just play, I'm just going to play the first section of Satin Doll. Let's have a look at it. Just in a really basic way, just to give you the sense of the song. Let me do that again. So technically you could say that whole section's in C major, but there's a lot of things going on within that C major. So the first thing I could have a go with is playing using that descriptive improvisation tactic of breaking up the chords, making arpeggios out of the chords. And I can invent really simple lines like arpeggiating upwards and then downwards. That sort of thing. It sounds a touch predictable, but it's really good just technical practice. Such a good thing to practice. Let's do that again. Okay, so now some more universal scales I could apply to that. Well, the first two bars is D minor 7 to G7, which is really a 2-5-1, but the 1 is missing. I call it 2-5, no 1. So I have a few options there. I could just play in C major. But that starts to sound a bit predictable. I have some other options when I'm playing pivoting on a minor 7. And whenever you're pivoting on a minor 7, like this, you could add a blues scale, a minor blues scale. So I could get that D minor 7 and I could turn it into a blues scale. Sounds really good. I'm just adding the fourth and the sharpened fourth. Sounds great, so I could apply that. And I could do the same on the E minor section. So I could do a mixture of blues, a mixture of the major scale, and a mixture of descriptive improvisation. But I'm going to keep it simple at the same time, not add too many notes. Bit of a blues, bit more blues, now some descriptive, there's quite a few little bunch of options there, but the idea is I want to keep it simple. And if it's moving by quite quickly, you're finding that there's keys are changing a bit too often, that's where descriptive improvisation is really helpful because you're living chord by chord and you can sort of just take each chord as it comes. Just do some different rhythms on it. Let's look at the middle section of the song. So the middle section of the song goes like this. And again, if you need some analysis help with these pieces, head on over to our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, because we have some analysis of these pieces in the supporting resources kit. So it can be in the key of F major here. This is a G minor 7 to C7. That's like a 2-5, 2-5, 1. So all of that's just F major stuff, right? So all compatible with F major. Now it's G major. And back to the first theme. Bit of D minor blues. Bit of E minor blues. Bit of a chordal improvisation. All right, I'm going to improvise on the whole thing now. Really watch what I'm doing in the right hand. I know I'm adding some extra things in the left hand, but today's tutorial is not about left hand playing. We have other tutorials on that on our channel. So if you're thinking about, well, what about left hand stuff and chord stuff? Just check out our channel. Like, it's all there, right? There's so much stuff there. But what I'm looking at now is how to decide what keys, scales, and chords to improvise on in the right hand. And I'm sort of weighing this all up. There's only one way to do it, and it's by just doing it. Sit down, play with it. Just play with 3 or 4 bars or 4 bars at a go and just loop those 4 bars around. If you want to just get the blues happening on those first 2 chords, it's a good place to start. Then you can do the next few chords. The E minor blues section. You just stay there for a while. Get used to it. Play around with it. Be analytical and loop small parts of it around. It really, really helps. It will make a big difference. So now I'm going to try the whole thing out for size. Let's see how we go. Just playing around with it. If I have to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not really happy with everything I did there because I'm sort of dancing between the different ways I'm playing. I'm thinking, oh, do I play a scale now? Do I play chords right now? But this is a really good way to practice. And it sharpens up my thinking. I'm thinking, well, if I were to play that at a gig and I'd want to give a much better solo at a gig, I'd be like, well, do I focus more on the chords for this song? Do I focus more on the scale? Or at what point do I focus on these things? And the thing with jazz is so intuition-based. By the time you go back to performing it or playing it, you want to be then having it under the fingers and not overthinking about it. You want to then just get into that cognition phase. So it's really important to cut out practice time to just get the basics of the scale and then weigh that up against the chords. So you could run a solo where you think entirely in chords. You could run a solo where you think entirely in scales. So you can think of it in different ways and then mixing the two together and then deciding through intuition, well, am I going to lean more towards the scale or lean more towards the chord? So that moves us on to another piece here. I'd like to look at, for our last example today, a piece by Herbie Hancock called Maiden Voyage. And this piece only has 4 chords, but they are 4 unbelievably cool chords. Let's play them. wasn't playing the tune or the song itself. I was just chording through it in a really simple way. The minor 7 chords with the suspended fourth in the bass, which is the identity of this chord progression. Now, it's one of those chord progressions where you can't really find an umbrella scale to fit it. In a lot of blues pieces, you can find an umbrella scale to fit it. And a lot of the examples I've given on this channel tend to be that because it suits a lot of students who are intermediate much, much better. But the reality is there's a lot of pieces out there, like all the things you are, like all the ones we've looked at today, that shift and move around. And there's no escaping those pieces. And this is one that shifts around so much we can't really say there's a universal scale for it. In fact, it's a piece where every new chord induces a key change, in a sense. So we can't really find a universal scale that's going to fit those 4 chords. It just does. There isn't such a thing. Every new chord is literally a new scale because there's such big changes. How do I know? Well, you don't need a theory degree to know, by the way. You just do it by trying it out for size, and you're like, okay, well, I can't stay on an A minor while I'm on an A flat, minor 7 chord. This is not going to work. So sometimes that's the best way to learn these things. So what is going to work? Well, with the minor 7 chord, seeing this is not a blues piece, we're not going to use the minor 7 chord conveniently to create a minor blues scale. We're going to ditch the blues note and just play it as a pentatonic minor. And that's going to work really well. So when we get to the C minor, the next chord, it'll be a C minor pentatonic. And then the next chord, B flat minor 7, it's going to be a B flat minor pentatonic. And go over to our website because we have a crib sheet of this piece with all of the right associated scales on it. There's our A flat minor pentatonic. So I'm going to arrange the left hand to cover the essence of the chord. So on the first chord, the A minor 7 over the D, I'm on A minor pentatonic. And then I'm on C minor pentatonic, and so on. So let me try that out for size and see how it goes. With every chord change, I change the scale. It's pretty fun, isn't it? Changing the scale on each chord. But I don't have to just play an A minor pentatonic. I can add an extra note for some extra spice. I can add the second note, the scale, and a major 6th interval above the root of the chord, and I get a Dorian scale. And the Dorians sound really, really nice on these minor 7 chords as well. Another nice trick to know is that Dorian fits nicely with minor 7 as well. It's got that lovely dreamy sort of sound to it. Now, if you're getting a bit of a theory overload, like, oh my gosh, this is so much, and it's a lot, you can simplify the theory. And a really good way to simplify the theory is use your ear. So just think about the minor pentatonic based on the minor 7 chord and add notes to it. Just add notes to it and hear what it sounds like. fine if you have to bumble around a bit at first, but if you find a combination you like, it will come from some of those other modes. You don't need a PhD on Greek and modes. You can just think A minor 7. Below the 7, I just have a semitone below it. That's the Dorian note, so we don't have to call it a Dorian note. We can just call it the F sharp below the G, right? Whatever allows you to find that note and play around with that sound. So these are some really useful principles to follow when you're deciding how to play a jazz improvisation over a set chord progression. We have the analysis sheets here. This is not a tutorial you're going to get straight away. You're going to need to go back and watch this a few times. And you're going to need to go to our website and get our resources kit. And many of you, actually, you just need to get coaching. You need to get off YouTube. I mean, there's only so far. Some of you actually think you're going to entirely get all your musical training on YouTube. And I admire you for your ambition, and I'm doing my best to help you. But actually, you need that training. You need a coach to hear you play, whether it's through a member of our team, whether it's here in London or online. We can do it both ways. You need someone to hear you. You play to them. They play to you. It's like a human being talking to another human being. That's how music lessons were done for many, many years. I know the internet's a wonderful thing, and you can listen to me and many great other instructors out there. But the reality is, like, if you're serious, you'll involve another human being in this process. And that's why you should head on over to our website if you're serious. I mean, it's just a bit of a pastime, but if you are serious about making some real improvement in your playing, you want to get some great coaching, and you want to get coaching of people who know how to help you improve, who know how to speak to the level you're at and know where the next steps are, and can teach you how to work through these things and how to listen and how to hear things, which is what our team do the best. It's what we are known for. That's what is happening really at our school on an everyday basis. This is just some nice extra bonus stuff. So go over to our website, get the resources pack to help support this video and your practice. And if you're really serious, get some coaching, because this stuff, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of understanding, and you need someone along the way to help you and support you on that journey. So I look forward to speaking with you soon, and have a great day. Thank you.